Hey, let's go over some ArrayList stuff. Here's what you're going to practice on. I just thought I'd explain what it's doing. Um, so first thing, by the way, a lot of the problems with this are they mess with the import statements. So double check. You might want to make sure this is capitalized. Anyway, this is your interface. Lists are interfaces, and lots of things use any type of list because different lists are good for different situations. But in specifically our actual thing we're using, our actual class we're using is an array list, which implements list. Here's how you make a array list generally. Usually you give it a list reference because then you can use it anywhere you could use a list. It's traditional. You've got these funny brackets here. It's something called generics in Java. If you're making a container for stuff and you want that container to be able to hold anything, you use something called generics, and this is how you say what's inside it. If someone went and made a array list class and had it so it could hold anything, and yeah, they use the generics. This is how you specify the type that is inside this container. So yeah, it's holding strings. By the way, with Java 8, which I'm not sure you can use, you can just do this. I'd be curious to see. Yeah, it still works here. So because you already specified your reference was a list of strings, like this has to be strings, so it's redundant to say it again. So as of Java 8, you don't have to do that. You can just leave it empty in the second one. But you can also leave it like this. All right, so we've created our list of strings. We called it names. It's a new array list. We could say it's string, or we could just have the two triangular brackets. That should work either way. And then we can do this sucker. We've got an array of various friends, and then we're just going to add them all to our array list. And just so for int I equals 0, so we loop through all the friends. We do names.add friends I. And if you use .add with an array list, it adds it to the end of the array. And so if you do it, notice they're all in the same order. First you stuck in Sam, then you added Jessica to the end of the array, then you added Mark to the end of the array, then you added Alexis to the end of the array list. So that's how that one worked. Not so bad. Here's the next one. Next one's sort of an interesting one. It's a reverse method. So it takes an array list and it creates a new array list in the reverse order. So here's how you could do that. So you got this method here. Again, check your import statements to make sure there are no capitalization errors or anything. So it's just a static method, public static. Here's the type. There. So you gotta have your type. Make sure you include the type of array list you're returning. It's called reverse, and it takes one parameter that's an array list of integers that we are calling list. You could also say it's just a list. This would also work just as well if you wanted. Notice exactly the same. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to make a new array list. It'll also work, actually, let's not. So our array list of integers reversed, we just set it up to be a new empty array list. And then for every element of the first list, so remember this is our for each loop. For each element in the list, we are adding it to the beginning. So if you do .add and it's got two parameters, the first one is the index you want to add it to, and the second one is what you're actually adding to your array list. So if we just keep adding stuff to the beginning, we're going to reverse our array list. So that's how we reverse it. We're adding it to the beginning. If we give it two things, the first one's the index and the second thing is the actual thing we're adding. So that's how it's reversed. And then if we look here, just to set it up in our main method, we create an array list called values, and then we add all of the numbers in this array to it, and then we use our reverse method on it. And then it prints out our expected result and our actual result. Notice that you can just print result. If you print result, it comes out looking like this. ArrayList is a class with something called a toString method, which I think we briefly mentioned. It gets it so it prints it in a nice form. If you just print it, it prints it in a nice readable form for you, which is nice. All right, let's take a look at the next guy. So we want to print all the integers at even indices in the array they give you. Again, we might want to specify what type of array we're dealing with here. And this for loop is messed up. Why don't we just work with the answer? All right. So for everything in the list, if the index mod 2 equals 0, if it's an even number, we're going to use the get method. I don't even know if this will run. Maybe. Oh, yeah. I was worried because they didn't specify what type of array list. Anyway, so .get is just equal to the element at that index. It's equal to if you had an array, it's the same thing as that. List.get I is equivalent to R at I. It's just equal to the value there. Though you can't use it for assignment. All right. So we got an array list of integer values, and then we load it up just like we've done before, and then we use our method on it. And that's that. For the next guy, so it prints out all the even integers in the passed in array. Now, one of the first things messed up here is this is not an array. It's got a size method. So you got to use size method. So if you look at the actual one, they changed it to size. So make sure you're using .size instead of .length for array lists. It's casting the value they get from the list to be an int, and then checking if it's even number, and then printing it out. You probably need this cast because you never specified that it was an array list of integers. Anyway, so you just, if you want to print out the value at I, you just use .get again. And there's nothing very exciting about this guy. For the next guy, we are supposed to fill the array list with values with the elements of the array nums using a for each loop instead of a for loop. So if we want to do it with a for each loop, it's not too hard. We would just do for int num in nums. We can do values.add num, and that should work. So yeah, big things to know. Add with an index, .size if you want to find the length of an array list, .get to get the value at an array, and yeah, again, if you're using .add with a dot add with an index, then it'll put it at that index, shifting everything else over. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. Hopefully this made some of it a little bit more clear.